In the first lockdown, amongst the many things that this company did to try and just keep artists in work, we set up we brought a whole lot of actors in on actors and other artists in on contract for 3 months, and a day a week we would just read plays, old plays, classics, and talk about how we might bring them back to life. We called it the adaptation group, and on a whim, I gave the group a copy of this novel by Mikhail Bulgakov, The Master and Margarita. So I'll say that much.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, and?
And. Right, okay. So it wasn't quite true what Aaron said, that there was no one in this building, because we came into this building
We were
like
allowed.
rats.
We were allowed to.
We were allowed in, and we came into this building and worked on plays that we thought we would never be able to stage, not because the theatre wouldn't open again, but because they were difficult plays, they were stretching plays, and they were sort of different plays from the plays that we had been seeing on stage for a while. And we read this book, and we were set homeworks from this book, and
in the search, this is like that group was dedicated to this problem that theatre has, which is that the past gets further and further away, faster and faster, and a whole lot of plays that used to be kind of like really solid, grounded staples of our theatre culture feel like they just sort of belong to another time, and that's been happening faster and faster. And so the more we looked for classics, the fewer we found. But when we read this novel, it leapt into the present in a way that none of us, I think, quite expected, actually.
Well, you talked a lot about the idea of infection, because we were there with this, incredible pandemic that none of us had experienced ever. And in this book, it's the story of the devil arriving in Moscow. And it's set in the 1920s in Russia, so just after the revolution, in this brave new world of, where they were going to change the way everybody lived, and it was going to be amazing. And the devil arrives, he's sort of invited in a weird way to this town that's strangely like Surrey Hills, Sydney. And where they're reporting back to the devil, how he says, how's it going down there? They've had a revolution, and what's happening? And the guy goes, well, it's sort of the same. It's real estate, really. It's ruining people. So there's many things in this book that we can sort of hold on to, the kind of like our small lives. What I love about it, and I love how everyone had a phone, and I, like an ancient, brought a book. But what I love about it is how the question it asks is, who is responsible? Is there a God? And it uses the word God. Is there a God? And if there's not, then who's responsible? Playing into the David Finnegan question of, oh gee, what's the plan, guys?
So the story is really quite simple. The devil turns up to Moscow and wreaks complete havoc, but the form of havoc that that havoc takes is high theatricality breaking out in the streets of a frightened city, and of a city that's lost its imagination and it's lost its sense of joy, and that's gotten a little bit too serious and a little bit too preoccupied with saying the right things and thinking the right things in real estate and going to the right restaurants and Surrey Hills or Moscow, who can tell? But this book actually was, I think it's a kind of, it was written in incredible adversity. It was written in secret. It shouldn't exist today. We shouldn't be able to hold that book in Surrey Hills today. The writer should have been shot in the back of the head for writing it. Many of his colleagues were. But he wrote it in secret, and that book outwitted that repressive Stalinist regime. And it's become a great emblem for artistic imagination in the decades since then around the world. It's a kind of curse or a hex this book, on all forms of authoritarianism, or of all forms of autocracy, on all forms of anyone who wants to kind of like use the power of the state or the power of any sort of hierarchy to grab the imaginations and minds of any people and squeeze them into submission. And this book refuses to accept that. And when we started to read that book out loud, it was like a spell had been cast and something had come back to life. We couldn't resist doing it. So all that happens at the beginning of our show is Beck Massey walks out with a book and begins to read. But what happens by the end of it, requires all sorts of astonishing, unstageable things to happen, because Bulgakov wrote this incredible flight of imaginative freedom that does include, for example, a woman flying naked over the streets of Moscow, which we will do with no set. That's the promise to you. So come to see our great... For us, it's kind of like saying, what can this company do that no other company can do? What can you do with nothing but some actors and a book? What can you do with a group of people? It's a large cast. What can you do with pure imagination and an invitation to the audience to join in? It's a mad adventure. It's a great labour of love for all of us. It's called The Master Margarita. And Beck Massey is going to be one of 10 to 12 performers inside that show. The Master Margarita.